In this study, we will analyze the impact of setting 100% clean energy goals on greenhouse gas emissions. Efforts to combat climate change have been made both internationally and domestically. The Paris Climate Agreement of 2016, according to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, is a landmark in the multilateral climate change process because, for the first time, a binding agreement brings all nations into a common cause to undertake ambitious efforts to combat climate change and adapt to its effects. 196 countries signed the Paris Climate Agreement in 2016, including the United States, and committed to delivering their nationally determined contributions to limit global temperature rising by 2020 that would ideally help the globe reach carbon neutrality by 2050. Under the Trump administration, the United States withdrew from the agreement effective November 4, 2020. Even still, according to Time magazine, more than 500 cities and counties across the United States and 25 state governors have formed a coalition along with thousands of businesses, universities, and others who are working to reduce emissions on a local level in line with the Paris Agreement. That is, the global call to action has already invigorated the public and private sectors to take steps toward mitigating climate change, regardless of party or administration. This is evidenced by the actions of national leaders, such as Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York and Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts, who rallied behind the Green New Deal. This set of guiding principles contributes to ongoing policy discussion at the federal level to combat climate change. Both national and international efforts to combat climate change have spurred subnational governments in the United States to tackle the issue. In this study, we analyzed the effects of adopting 100% clean energy policies by state, county, and local governments. Clean energy includes renewable, zero-emissions energy sources that cannot be depleted, including wind, solar, and geothermal energies. These standards are lauded and pursued by local governments because they represent a symbolic pledge to the community on behalf of the government and are viewed as the embodiment of an environmentally focused mission statement and set of values. At its current pace, the United States is not on its way to reaching any substantial clean energy benchmarks that would be able to upset the current trajectory of climate change. However, according to Bisline et al., despite our lackluster national progress towards massive infrastructural adjustments, these baseline trends may reduce the cost of adopting policies to achieve emission reduction targets. Because of the patchwork nature that clean energy legislation exists within, the most feasible way to track how the United States is combating climate change is to look at the state and local level, where initiatives have been passed and embraced much more quickly than any proposals at the federal level. As a result, our study focuses on efforts by subnational governments, such as states, counties, and municipalities, to promote clean energy. We analyzed the cause-effect relationship between adopting 100% clean energy goals by state and local governments and the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. 100% clean energy goals can be analyzed through the lens of both effectiveness and efficiency. We will determine the effectiveness of 100% clean energy programs through analysis of the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions measured as a percentage of total greenhouse gas emissions in the jurisdiction. We will also analyze the level of resources, whether funds, labor, or time, committed to clean energy programs and their impact on the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. The sample we will be analyzing includes 50 jurisdictions, of which 75% are municipalities, with the remaining 25% split between state, county, and other local governments that have committed to the goal of 100% clean energy. The governments in this sample that have enacted the most comprehensive policies will be especially suitable for statistical analysis because they will have observed and recorded the most data for our consideration. Some of the municipalities that have enacted the most progressive and far-reaching clean energy initiatives include New York City, Los Angeles, Portland, and Washington, D.C., to name a few. Our independent variable is a subnational government's progress toward the 100% clean energy goal. This information can be collected from the annual reports published by the governments themselves. The baseline measure for our dependent variable consists of the average greenhouse gas emissions in the jurisdiction in the 5 years leading up to the adoption of its 100% clean energy goal. Then, using annual greenhouse gas emissions records, we will determine the percentage reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in the years following adoption of the 100% clean energy goal. While several cities have achieved 100% clean energy, most are years away from a fully clean infrastructure. This leaves a log linear regression model to be most effective in analyzing the clean energy benchmark achieved, such as 25%, 50%, or 70% as our independent variable, and percent reduction in greenhouse gas emissions as our dependent variable. As a control variable, we will also be considering the budgets allocated to said clean energy goals. This variable will be standardized in relation to the national average or how much the federal government is currently investing in combating climate change per capita. The internal validity of this study is reflected in the cause-effect relationship between adopting 100% clean energy standards and the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. That is, governments whose executives or policymakers sign off on the promise to achieve 100% clean energy will prioritize sustainable energy policy, make changes to operations, and devote their political capital to achieving appropriate reductions in greenhouse gas emissions within the specified timeframe to ensure re-electability. There may be some external validity concerns with generalizing our study's results to general-purpose governments at other levels, such as the federal government. Due to the high profile of political decisions at the federal level, the number of organizations it encompasses, and complexity of regulations and other legal requirements governing the federal government, shifting to 100% clean energy for the United States government is a significantly different undertaking than for a city, county, or state. As a result, we recommend separate study on the federal government. Because it is not feasible to measure climate change mitigation and allocate the portion attributable to a local government, we utilize greenhouse gas emissions as a proxy. These emissions are the leading cause of climate change and can be easily calculated by each unit of government, making them a suitable candidate for strong construct validity. We will use a one-tailed test with a significance level of 0.05 in this study to determine if clean energy goals have a statistically significant impact on greenhouse gas emissions. The global call to action has already invigorated the public and private sector to take steps toward mitigating climate change regardless of party or administration. According to the Carbon Disclosure Project, a nonprofit organization assisting both the public and private sectors in disclosing, tracking, and mitigating their environmental impact, over 100 cities now get at least 70% of their electricity from renewable sources such as hydro, geothermal, solar, and wind. Pledging to work toward 100% clean energy follows the global urgency to slow rising temperatures as a result of the overuse of fossil fuels. This study is framed around the idea that subnational jurisdictions can call on their power to enact policy that impacts society beyond their city, county, or state limits. We sample 50 jurisdictions, of which 75% are cities and 25% are states or counties, that have pledged adoption of 100% clean energy and have reached the benchmark of at least 25% clean energy. The difference in emissions from the pre-program level 5 years prior to the initiation of the policy will be analyzed to evaluate the program's effectiveness. We expect that as governments near their 100% target, greenhouse gas emissions will be lower due to decreased demand for fossil fuels. The Biden administration has recently expressed commitment to investing in infrastructure, which may aid in the modernization of buildings that may be more energy efficient both in construction and in use. President Biden's American Jobs Plan would allocate significant funding toward clean energy infrastructure, reiterating the administration's commitment to setting the United States on a path to clean energy. Although there is no formal adoption of policy programs like the Green New Deal at the federal level, the efforts of subnational governments can make a significant contribution toward a greener future.